Mr. Norton, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. First of all, I would like to know, you have been on the ground, you've been region to region, you've been speaking to people, you've been doing what we call some quiet work. What is it truly you are hearing on the ground? What is it that the electorate is telling you?
The electorate essentially is saying a number of things. One, that they exist in poverty. Two, the cost of living is extremely high. Life has become unaffordable, for the want of a better word. The other thing we hear from them is that they want resources to meet them. And so a lot of our manifesto and the plans we have are a reflection of the engagements we had with them. And that is why we end up with putting people first, because they believe that they should be the major focus rather than the elite in the society. And the other thing you hear is a rejection of the People's Progressive Party. They might not necessarily be supporting you, but there needs to be a national outcry against the People's Progressive Party. I would say those are the key things.
You have a number of persons who are turning 18 years and over who will be eligible to vote. How well do you think the Partnership for National Unity has appealed to these voters?
I think we have appealed. I think the emerging intellectuals in that group are very comfortable with us. They believe that the best chance is with us. And so I think we're appealing to the group. But there's also a section of the group that the education system would have failed them. And so I don't think they are clear on policies, etc. So we've been meeting out to them on the ground and engaging them and talking to them on a one-on-one, because they really and truly are not part of the debates, etc., that are ongoing. I believe that the PPP deliberately pushed certain sections of the society in poverty, and they also decided that what they will do is make offers to them, make them hooked on money, and in the same vein, other political parties rode on that. So for us, we have to engage them directly, which we've been doing and we continue to do today, and to explain to them that there is no quick fix, that you have to have structured policies to eradicate poverty, to uplift them, etc. So that section, I think, is still a section that we have to continue to engage right up to midnight tonight.
Before I pass the mic to my senior, Ms. Johnson, you have been at the forefront of several picket action in front of the Ghana Elections Commission. You have been calling for biometrics, you've been calling for a clean voters list, you have been calling for the chairman to go. None of these things have happened, yet the APNU is contesting the elections. How do you feel about all that?
Well, we have to contest the elections. If you are a careful study of the politics of the Caribbean and politics generally, if you're going to boycott an election, you have to ensure that it doesn't come off. You don't boycott an election and then allow your opponents to take all the seats. And the PPP is not a party that suffers from moral compunction. It's a political party that will take all the seats and not even bother that there is no opposition representative. In fact, the way they govern is suggestive that they have no interest in opposition. So for me, it was a pragmatic, realistic decision. We're cognizant of the fact that the list is padded, that the PPP specializes in illegalities. They like to throw the brick and hide their hands so that you don't see where the brick is coming from. And we take all of that into consideration and decided that it is in the interest of the people of Ghana that we contest these elections, notwithstanding the problems of the voters list, etc.
Mr. Norton, thank you for accommodating us this morning. I mean, we're just hours away from the elections. So I'm going to take you back to the tail end of Travis's question. And I'm going to ask you about the state of readiness by GCOM for these elections. We've had reports of the presiding officers resigning, some And then we've also heard from GCOM that they have also replaced those people and have the necessary staff in place. Then there was also the issue of polling clerks from the various political parties who were not accommodated, and then GCOM has accommodated them. Would you comment on the state of readiness for these polls by the Ghana Elections Commission? And we have hours to go to the polls.
I don't think they are ready at all. I think they are a function of the fact that they allow the government to determine. I think they knew full well that the time allocated to prepare for the election was extremely short and that they were going to be in trouble. But because they have become a pawn of the government, they purported to be ready when in fact they are not ready. The government also would have compounded the problem by passing laws that threaten people with jail, etc. And there are a lot of people out there who would like to see free and fair elections, and they believe that the PPP is going to become involved in illegalities, and so a lot of them pulled out because they are worried that if they don't do what they want, then they could be in trouble. The PPP is not going to create any avenues for free and fair elections. We have to do the work to scrutinize these elections. I understand that they have reconsidered and they have accepted win, etc. All I would say to you is this: as opposition, we welcome every political party that can scrutinize the election. It is unfortunate that the political parties in preparing didn't pay keen attention to the guidelines. The guidelines were extremely short, and so I think GCOM has made itself the problem. And so what you saw with WIN and others was a clear indication that they are not ready. They are forging along because the government wants them to forge along. In fact, I understand that they have a plan to declare they win by Tuesday morning. We are waiting, we are watching. It isn't going to fly. I don't know that GCOM has the capacity to count all the votes by Tuesday, and we will have our scrutineers there, our polling agents scrutinizing the elections. We will monitor it and we will take action as early as is practically possible.
How efficient is your communications with the outlying areas for you, that is the APNU, to have an idea of how the votes went before GCOM, or have an idea of how the votes went across the country, given you would have statements of poll posted at the various locations at the close?
We have a mechanism to instantly transmit that information. Of course, as is normal, we will have a command center that is receiving all the information and analyzing all the data. I would say that we are well positioned to be able to get all the statements of polls in and to be able to determine what the situation is.
APNU has been dogged by statements of poll issues from the last elections. Given that and your stated position just now, how early can you as a party say that we've lost, we've won, or are you going to await GCOM's declaration?
No, I don't think we will await GCOM's declaration. We will put together our information and make our declaration at the earliest possible time. We have no trust in GCOM. GCOM is like the PPP, so how would I rely on GCOM? GCOM and the PPP are one and the same, and therefore we have to do our work and be able to say what the position is much earlier than waiting on GCOM.
Ghana's elections have been fraught with hostilities before sometimes and after the declarations. What can you tell Guyanese? And I'm not talking here only to your APNU supporters. I'm asking you, what can you say to Guyanese as we are headed to the polls and with hours to go?
I would say to the Guyanese public that we have placed before you our manifesto. Through our public meetings and engagements, we have outlined to you very clearly where we intend to take Guyana, and that we anticipate you will vote for the APNU. We will proceed to say to them that we have shown, at least since I am leader, that we were prepared to allow a parliamentary process to take its way, We didn't become involved in street protests, not that we lacked the ability to, but we thought that let us give the electoral approach a chance. While we're doing that, we're recognizing the shenanigans of the People's Progressive Party and their attempts at rigging. We've seen their total control of the Elections Commission. And so while we want to see parliamentary democracy working, we're not prepared to sacrifice the free and fairness of the election at the altar of parliamentary democracy. Put differently, we hope there's a free and fair election. We participate in it. We expect that the actual results will be delivered. Any attempt to rig the elections will face the consequences that they deserve. We refuse to sign the code of conduct, but we have agreed that we'll conduct ourselves in keeping with it. But we refuse to sign it because all the institutions in the country, including the Ethnic Relations Commission, they have all been compromised. We have no trust in them. So I would say to the Guyanese people, hold your breath. Let's hope that the elections are free and fair, but be prepared that if they aren't, it isn't going to be business as usual.
My final question to you, sir, at this time would be, what makes you, Aubrey Norton, the candidate to be president, and what makes APNU the party to lead this elections?
Let me start with the APNU. I believe we have put together a group of people that can be considered professionals. They have the academic and professional experience. I can say to you as well, a lot of the things in our manifesto outside of the professional paradigm are things that emerge from our engagement with the people of Guyana. So in large measure, the APNU sought to sit, engage people, the average person, engage professionals, and then try to mirror their interests and work with them. And I would say it is from that emerged the view that we must put people first. And since it is obvious to all that we are putting people first, I think then the APNU should be the political party of choice because of its policies, its programs, and the projects it intends. As it relates to me personally, I'm of the view that there are a number of things that qualifies me to be the presidential candidate. First, I will put the fact that I am on the ground, engaging people. I consider myself to have come from humble upbringing, and I've also considered myself to have not been carried away by raw power. I bring some amount of what I call morality to politics. I'm not one who believes that everything about politics should be dirty. I believe that there is scope to develop morality in politics. I want to be in the forefront of that. I think in terms of academic qualifications, I cannot be questioned. I think that throughout my life, academically, I was able to do what was required. I've not been involved in anything outside of the confines of the law. All my qualifications, etc., can be established by just going to the University of Canterbury or the University of Guyana, and it could be established that. I also believe my integrity is critical. I've been around for years. I've seen people try to bribe me, and I've refused it. Even as a lecturer at a university, you had to say to people, no, you don't go down that road. So I believe my integrity is intact. I believe that I can return honesty to government. But most of all, I think I'm in touch with people, and therefore I have a barometer for judging the temperature. And when I do that, I believe that people are comfortable with my leadership. Like anything, there will always be people who are against you. There are those who believe that a presidential candidate must have a particular look, a particular complexion, but I call those things form. I believe based on content, I will be the best presidential candidate. I am the best presidential candidate in this race.
Mr. Norton, Svetlana Marshall, News Source. Now, a lot of of the smaller parties are now calling on the electorate to split the votes. Last night we heard from Forward Guyana Movement that the two larger parties, PNC included, have thrived in a way on race baiting and would have participated in the division of Guyana along political racial lines. Forward Guyana came out in a sense of the PNCR or the coalition. Its presidential candidate came out of the coalition. AFC has also called for the votes to be split. Are you concerned that these two parties may pull significant votes from the coalition?
I'm not at all concerned. In the case of Forward Guyana, I won't offer too much of a comment. I don't think they've arrived at a point where they can impact the outcome of these elections. The AFC has some historical background, etc., but I believe the best of the AFC would have endorsed the APNU and part of the APNU. And so I would say to them, look, I think it is in your interest to talk about splitting the votes. But if we are looking at Guyana and looking at the political party that stands the best chance of beating the People's Progressive Party, then the APNU is that party, and therefore it is within our right to say, do not split the vote, because to split the vote is to help the PPP. I am not at all worried about Amanza Walton talking about race baiting. In fact, during her time in the APNU, she was accused of suggesting that Indians were lazy and a lot of nonsense. So I would just say that it's someone who should just glance at in passant.
The other question, sir, with regards to the electoral process, now following the vote by the members of the discipline services, there were some issues that arose, particularly with the sorting of the ballots. 2 missing ballots in the case of regions, I think 5 and 10, and region 4 had 2 extra ballots. Now the Ghana Elections Commission has come up with a method. I'm sure that by now you've been informed as to the method. Are you pleased, are you satisfied that that would be able to resolve the issues that arose during the sorting of those ballots?
First of all, the numbers are not numbers that you can say will impact an election, 1 or 2. But the very fact that they happen is a manifestation of the incompetence of GCOM. It is not for me to decide whether I'm happy with it or not. It's a reality that exists. But I also believe that political parties looking for attention might have blown it out of proportion.
Okay, my final question for now has to do with the safeguards in place to prevent, one, voter impersonation, but also protect the secrecy of the ballot. This is something that your party would have spoken about. Are you satisfied with the measures in place?
I'm not satisfied. Look, what you see in the electoral process is a reflection of the society itself. In some regard, what you see happening and with the policeman putting up his thing, etc., is a function of PPP corruption. As they seek to bribe people to get votes, some people believe that that is correct even though it is against the law. We have to do the work to minimize it, but we are cognizant of the fact that this society has been corrupted by the PPP, and what should be abnormal has become the norm. We will do everything to ensure that we minimize it and not let it impact the outcome of the elections.
Tell us a little bit about your manifesto. How long did it take to put together, and what do you think is the most outstanding thing in that manifesto?
Putting people first. I believe the basis of the manifesto is putting people first. The manifesto, from the time I became a leader, I had asked Sherwood Lowe, who had returned to the party when I became leader, for us to begin a process of developing the manifesto. What we did was set up, we had a economic council, we had a natural resource group, education, all the sectors. And we also went out into the communities. And as we got ideas from the community, we would feed it into the manifesto committee. We had professionals in the diaspora all around contributing, so that by the time we would have arrived at the time to deliver a manifesto, we had a whole plethora of data. Then we had to be selective. And we selected what we considered to be the most critical. There are two things I would say about our manifesto. It puts people first, and it is clearly aimed at modernizing Guyana while at the same time eradicating poverty.
Long before these elections were announced, the press releases coming out from this party, most of it ended with "as your government in waiting." Why are you so confident of getting to this seat of government?
Because of what I just said to you, we were in contact with the people, we were feeling the pulse of the people. I'm also well aware that the PPP has this tendency to believe that they can get everything done by public relations. And I believe that we analyzed the situation politically correct. And very early, one of the first things I did as leader is to draft this political scenario to reflect the reality. And that reality was that the PPP was about itself, family, friends, and favorites. And everything they did contributed to ensuring people understand that that is really who they are. And so there are a number of thematics that we identified: family, friends, and favorites. Their incompetence, their divisiveness, and their desire to dominate and control. And all of those we brought into a political scheme which reflected the reality of the PPP. And I thought people bought into that. And to the extent they would have believed it and know it from the ground, it gives me confidence that we're going to be the People's Progressive Party.
Before I pass the microphone back to Ms. Johnson, most of your candidates who mounted the platform highlighted and spoke of incidents of corruption. Should you be elected president, aren't you fearful that you would spend more time cleaning up?
Excuse me. Well, it has to be a parallel process. While you clean up, you build. Yes, we have to clean up. It's necessary, but we have to build. We have a manifesto in which one of the first things I will do as a president is to, let's sit in a room, take the manifesto, identify the policies, identify the programs, identify the projects, some of which we would have done, and so that from day one you can hit the ground with clear policies, programs, and projects to allow you to achieve the objectives you set yourself in the manifesto. So even though we have to clean up, I don't think we will be consumed by the cleanup. We will work on the cleanup, but we will simultaneously work on realizing the objectives of the manifesto.
Guyana is a signatory to the Chapultepec Agreement. Part of that agreement speaks to access to information. It speaks to access to persons in high offices. I'll admit that under the Granger administration, it was hell to get in contact with a minister to respond to a simple allegation or something that the PPP or another political party has said. You can give us an assurance that if you're elected into government, that your ministers will be accessible, especially to the press?
Well, if you listened to me last night, I virtually said that all ministers will have to be accessible to the people of Guyana, including the press. My own experience, I've never shied away from the press. I met the press virtually every week. If I'm out and they come, I give them an interview. I believe you only run from the press if you have things to hide or for some reason you just don't want to engage the press. I believe in engaging the press. I believe in ensuring people have access to information. However, I believe because of how the Access to Information Act emerged and the person that was chosen to put there, the very decision to appoint Ramson was the decision to ensure there was no access to information.
Ms. Norton, tagging on Travis's question about corruption and stuff, given what has happened and what it's not only this government but previous government have been tagged with the corruption description, what would be APNU government's position on corruption? Should any of your members or be part or named in any sort of
One of the first things I will do is to engage all the persons appointed and say to them from the inception, if you believe the salary you're going to get is inadequate, don't take the job. Because once you're found to be involved in corruption, you will be fired. Also, you would note that throughout this process, I am now one who would have said, oh, we can jail them for corruption, etc. And I never said it because our laws are weak. And one of the things I want to do is to ensure we have proper anti-corruption laws. There's little or no sense in talking about anti-corruption and then your laws don't facilitate it. Look how Irfan Ali and Nandlal were able to use the court system to stymie the process so that they never came to justice. You always have this problem in a society like this where the laws don't give you the power and there is scope in the law for he who has wealth to employ the best lawyers and succeed. We have to block those loopholes, and we also have got to engage people, the people we make ministers, etc. We have to keep monitoring their moral compass. Because you see, you can appoint somebody now, and then offers are made to them, and they can compromise themselves. We have to avoid that. I am well aware from my own experience when I became presidential advisor, how people come to you with all these offers and they have this view that everybody's up for sale. We have to ensure we find the right combination of people who cannot be sold or bought and push with them, and very early remove from the system those who have the proclivity towards corruption.
I want to take you back on your manifesto and talking about putting people first. I heard you mention about talking to professionals and all the professionals in order to gather information to put in your manifesto. What about the common man, woman, boy, child, girl? What about them? Aren't their opinions as important as the professionals, the academics?
Yes, in fact, I did say that. I did say that we went from region to region, person to person, and engaged them and got from them what are their real concerns. And that is why we say this is a people-centered document. Because, yes, we had the professionals to give us professional advice, etc. But the ideas for it came from the ordinary man out there. Excuse me.
All right, Mr. Norton, my two last questions for you. Prior to this elections campaign and run up to elections, which, as I am repeating, are a couple hours away, there have always been the endorsement of political parties by businesses, by stuff. I haven't seen that groundswell of support for, publicly that is, for your party. Is this a concern?
No, it is not. In fact, very early as the political leader of our party, I made the pronouncement that I prefer to go into the election from the contribution of small people rather than go committing to big business people. And after you're in the electoral, after the elections, you win the elections, then you're obligated to them. I want to be obligated to the people of Guyana. We promote business. There's a total section in here on business. We have no problem with businesses. But I'm well aware that the power of business, sometimes if you allow them, they will force you in the direction of not serving the people, but serving their interests. That is not going to happen with me. And so through these elections, I didn't pay attention to endorsement. I'll tell you a story. When it was decided that Director Finance was going to be our prime ministerial candidate, and Sherrod and a number of people had come. People were saying to me, oh, the PPP and them were celebrating how they got people from you. And I said to them, we don't have to do that. The people that are coming, we come with an agreement on a manifesto on what we will do for the people of Guyana. I didn't see the need to be having upsmanship because Jaretta would have come from the AFC or this person would have come. So I was never the person who fought with endorsements. I fought with meeting the people, engaging them, understanding what they want, and obtain people's support rather than individual support. Any individual for filthy lucre can say they support you, but then it is not you they support. They are supporting their interests. They are supporting their willingness to get rich. I wasn't going to go in that direction. I was always bent on focusing on the Guyanese people and let the Guyanese people endorse us rather than individuals running out. I've seen individuals who would have endorsed, and we welcome it. But what I'm saying to you, we didn't have an approach of asking people to endorse us. We had an approach of engaging people, understanding people, reflecting their interests, and then let them automatically endorse us by the actions that they place support.
There always been the issue since Exxon came to Guyana of uncollected profits, uncollected taxes, and more so that the company is getting much more than the country. And I have two words here: Exxon Guyana, an albatross or a godsend?
Might be a combination. You see, nothing in this world is straightforward. Everything in this world has negative and positive. There's no doubt that Exxon is a positive in terms of coming and ensuring that we get the oil out of the ground and make money from it. But also there's the negative of the time at which we signed the agreement. We were short of oil, Exxon had the advantage, and that ended up being a negative for us. Like I've said, and it's in the manifesto, we will engage Exxon with the aim of ensuring we get the most benefits for the people of Guyana. Add to that the fact that we lack the institutional capability to actually monitor Exxon. Years ago, I wrote an article, an academic article in a journal, I don't remember now, on, the article was entitled Multinational Corporations Beyond Diatribe. We have to go beyond the diatribe. We have to go now and increase the capacity of this country to audit Exxon, engage professionals. I've got schoolmates who work with Exxon, engage professionals across the country and in the diaspora to help us to increase the benefits while at the same time ensuring Exxon could operate in the society, get a reasonable return, but don't become an albatross around the necks of the people of Guyana.
Thank you.
Mr. Norton, my question has to do with your housing policy. Have you laid out a menu of measures to improve access to housing? One of those measures include offering free house lots, if I got it right, to persons who earn below $400,000. Now, given the backlog that governments would have struggled to address, how do you intend, what is your action plan to address this issue?
I think the government suffer from coastal-itis. Everything for them has to be done on the coast. I would say this to you. Our approach will be all 10 regions. There are certain things we will take into consideration in our housing program. We will do it in all 10 regions. We want to focus on putting people on the highlands because you're talking about climate change. It is idle talk to talk about climate change and then continue to proliferate the coast with all these houses, etc. I believed in what David Granger wanted to do. His decision that it should not be the Ministry of Regional Development, it should be the Ministry of Communities, for me is a very profound decision, though people didn't pay attention to it. And our intention is to build communities across the country, and communities that are self-sustainable. Let's take the highway. You can take parts of that highway and put thousands of people to live there. You put hospital, you put recreation, and you create business around it. And so new communities can evolve. The government only looks at high-end communities. I'm talking about communities of people. Let's take Linden. You can begin to shift people from Linden along that corridor to Lethem. You can begin to shift people along the corridor to Aichuni. When you look at these areas, there are many areas still to be open. On the east bank of the Essequibo, it's above sea level. We can do housing there. Now, I don't anticipate we will get rid of the backlog. What I do anticipate is that we are going to build communities, we're going to put people in houses, and people will see the benefit of what we're doing, and with time, we will solve the problem. But because we are cognizant of the fact that we can't do it all at one time, we have established what we call rent to own. We will then also have what we call rent support, where as we seek to build houses for people below the poverty line, we can help them with rent relief. And we also want to help with mortgage relief. You might not have all the funds to be entitled to a mortgage, but we as the state can guarantee. So you will have houses emerging privately through mortgages. You will seek to stabilize your people's accommodation through your rent system. And then you have your rent to own. And then you have those that you can give house lots to who have the capacity to build. Now, the decision to say free house lots is a decision that, in my opinion, is important because you want people to own property. There is a certain dignity and honor that is felt when you own a house. And I think once we can get people in thousands to own a house, there is going to re-emerge a hope in this country and the people themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, I'm looking at your manifesto, page 26, promoting ethnic harmony and social cohesion. Under the previous APNU government, there was a Ministry of Social Cohesion. Do you see bringing all the races together as a challenge?
It's a challenge, but it is a challenge that can be overcome. The question needs to be asked is this: what are the factors promoting race? Politics, one. Absence of resources, two. Geographic separateness. At the level of geographic separateness, we can develop housing schemes and invite people of different ethnic groups to live in those schemes. So you break the separateness. And then once people start to live together, they will understand each other. One of the points that I didn't make, one of the causes of ethnic division is a misunderstanding of each other culturally and otherwise. You know, I always remember in 1976, I went on a YSM training program, and a young Amerindian boy became a friend of mine, Ruben. He had come out of the interior for the first time to come to this course. And one day somebody was commenting on how the Amerindians walk one behind the other and said, you know, in very derogatory terms, see, Bokmans walk one behind the other. And Ruben very quietly said, how else could we walk if we live in a place that we walk in a track? And so here it was, some idiot from the coast denigrating people without understanding their life, their geography. They didn't have broad roads so that they could walk all over the road. They virtually walked in a track. And so it was part of the culture to walk one behind the other. And that is why I believe understanding people culturally and otherwise will help in dealing with. The other thing is distribution of resources in a fair way. A lot of the Afro-Guyanese and other ethnic groups are up against the PPP because they discriminate in the allocation of resources. And if we find a much fairer mechanism to allocate resources, then we will be contributing to the reduction in racial tension. Now, I'm not one who believes that you're going to change it overnight, but we can put down the pillars that allow us to build a strong, united society in the future.
I have two final questions. They're a bit touchy. The United States has sanctioned a number of Guyanese. The only one that we continue to hear about day in, day out is the presidential candidate for the Win Party, Mr. Azzuddin Mohammed. We understand that the list of individuals to be sanctioned could be very long. Apart from that, how would a Aubrey Norton government treat with an extradition request?
Extradition
request.
Well, one will have to look at the facts. If the legal and other arguments are presented and it is established that it's justified, we will do it. What I wouldn't do is allow any government to, at their whims, fancies, and caprices, demand the extradition of a Guyanese who didn't commit a crime. But once there has been established that there is a crime, once it affects Guyana and Guyana's resources, then in my opinion, the government is obligated to respond to it and ensure that what is required happen.
If I'm correct, we have 841 kilometers of border. If it might be a little bit, give or take, one or two. The United States, the UK, Canada, they're very concerned about narco trafficking. Do you see that as a challenge to your government as well? How you plan to tackle this thing?
First of all, you have to change the leadership of the Guyana Police Force. If your people who are supposed to be in charge of law enforcement are accused of being involved in illegalities, then if you leave them there, you'd be charging Caesar to be tried by Caesar, who will find himself not guilty. The second thing I would say is that there is need for increased use of the technology. We live in a modern world in which we can utilize technology to monitor this very wide society we have. In fact, I believe this government has the capacity to, but they only use the technology to be vindictive and discriminate. They don't use it in a way to protect Guyana and help Guyana. I think we will make that shift. We would shift to the use of technology to secure Guyana. When the PPP came to power in 1992, Guyana was in a center of drug trafficking. It is the PPP that facilitated it and accommodated it, and in some regard were part and parcel of it. The departure of the PPP will signal the beginning of the end of the narco trafficking by our government. We will have to engage in it and deal with it. The problem with narco trafficking is a few benefit and the majority suffers.
Finally, before we let you go, you have been meeting since you became leader of your opposition with members of the international community. Do you get the impression that they're prepared and ready and willing to work with Aubrey Norton? And secondly, Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuela-Guyana border dispute. Help us to give us your own understanding of what you think is happening. I see the United States have sent some warships closer to the Southern Caribbean. Give us an understanding of what you think is happening there. And Maduro also is a threat to this very country.
The United States has its interests. It knows, or at least it perceives, what is its interest. The United States will pursue its interests. We have our interests. Our interest is in protecting our territorial integrity, while at the same time ensuring that we keep Venezuela at bay. Now, international relations has never been a straightforward thing. We will have to analyze U.S. interests, know what elements we need to be responsive to, analyze our interests, and know what we need to do in terms of our interests. And the only thing I can guarantee you is that as president, I will pursue our interests, which is the protection of our territorial integrity and sovereignty. I also believe that one of the weaknesses of this government is if they disagree with something, they don't engage diplomatically. I am one who believes that the path of diplomacy is about engaging so both sides understand and work out arrangements that will suit both sides. That is the approach I will take. I don't believe everything the U.S. do will be in our interests. I don't believe everything we do will be in the U.S. interest, but I do believe if we can engage and find common ground, we both can move forward.
And international community, you get the impression that they're...
My engagements with the international community, I gain the impression that they just want to see a proper election, and once a government is duly elected properly, they are willing to engage. But again, I've said that this thing is about interests, and until the elections are over, you're not going to know what is the real interest of anybody.
Mr. Norton, thank you very much for taking time out